Good afternoon, Rotarians. It's the 29th of July, the last day of this month for our meetings, and we're about to begin a very exciting Rotary meeting today. As we begin, I would like you all to stand for reflection from Butch Kruger. Katie Zrake will do the pledge, and George Eistetter will do the four-way test.
Will you bow with me, please? Lord, we acknowledge that you are the giver of every good and perfect gift. So we thank you for this beautiful summer day, the food that has been provided, and the good fellowship around each table. In thy name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Wait a minute, everybody. Can't sit down yet. The four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair
to all concerned?
Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to
All concerned. Thank you to Butch, Katie, and George. Our sponsor for this entire month is WGTE, and we're going to hear more from them later, but thank you very much, WGTE, for sponsoring this meeting. Kelly Tram, do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Hi, President Tim. We have one visiting Rotarian with us today. Ken Robinson from the Ohio Pathways E-Club. If you'd please stand, and welcome to our club today.
Ken, you've got a bunch of new friends today. Welcome. I would like to invite members who have guests today to come to the microphone and introduce your guests, please.
Good afternoon, President Tim. I would like to introduce Jamal Jones, who is the Director of Admissions for the Hondros College of Nursing. Thank you.
Welcome, Jamal. Jamal, I hope you feel very welcome and enjoy the meeting today. Now's the time to think about Facebook and your cell phones and to like Toledo Rotary on your social media and turn the thing off, please. I haven't seen Candace Harris today. There she is, one of my favorite people. Candace, would you go to the microphone and tell us a little bit about the Youth Services Project?
Thank you, President Tim, and good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I'm up here today to talk to you about our school supply drive, our Pack the Pantry for Glendale Philbach Elementary School. As you know, we already have a partnership with them, so we've elected to help them stock their pantry. A lot of the teachers repeatedly purchase supplies out of their own funds, out of their own pockets, and go unreimbursed. So we're just trying to assist them in this way. The bins are set up outside of the room. They'll be there for 2 more Mondays, August 5th and August 12th, and then we'll do a drop-off at the school. So if you look in your spoke, it's broken down by the alphabet so that we don't end up with an overabundance of certain things and none of other things. So please join us in assisting the students at Glendale Philbach. Thank you, and the teachers. Bye.
Wait a minute, Candace, before you walk off.
Sorry.
So when we collect all this stuff, how are we going to get it over to the school?
We're going to drive it there.
So our members are going to take it over?
Well, the Youth Services Committee has kind of taken the lead, but anyone who'd like to join us when we go make the delivery are welcome. The school is very excited. They're very honored and gracious that we would take this on, so they're going to be very flexible with the time. So if there's anyone who would be interested to go and drop off along with us, they're welcome to join us. And we'll probably do that on the 13th, which will be the day after our final collection.
Thank you very much. This is a great project.
Thank you.
Kathy, would you come to the mic? And I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Please, not yet. I'm wrong. I am not a perfect guy. Now could we hear at the floor mic from Membership Development, Shireen Murad.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am announcing the Party on the River at the H2O after our hours. It is this Thursday, so we need you to come and be our guest and bring a guest. Please, please, please bring a guest. Guests from past lunches or anybody that you've had in mind that you'd like to come. Show them what our events can be about, and let's share the gift of Rotary. So it's this Thursday, August 1st, from 4:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's on the river. It's going to be a beautiful day. It is at the Imagination Station. It's at the back of it. It's called H2O. So please bring a guest and put it in your calendars from now, and we will see you there.
Wait a minute. Just a couple questions.
Okay.
So is there a charge for this?
There's no charge, it's free.
So this is
And there's
free.
going to be yummy food and lots of games and a cash bar.
Can I come if Cindy's mad at me and I come by myself?
You can come by yourself, but I prefer you bring somebody too. No, just kidding. No, please come either way.
Okay, are you trying to attract seasoned Rotarians, or are you only trying to attract new members?
Okay, so all of our events that I would like to make sure that we have this year attracts seasoned Rotarians to come help us share the gift of Rotary to all of our guests. I would like everyone to explain to our guests why it's so important to be a part of Rotary. And the only way that we can do that is by having all of you help me share the gift with all of our guests at these events. So all these events are really, really, really important for you guys to come enjoy, but also help me spread the word.
Thank you, Shireen.
You're welcome. I'll see you guys all there.
Now's the time for some president's announcements. I don't have very much, except that I was thinking today about the various committees, the service committees, and I was thinking about all the people that have served on the service committees, either as chairman or vice chairman. So if you would indulge me for a moment, those people that any time in the past have served either as a chairman or a vice chairman of any one of the service committees, would you please stand? And before you sit down, take a look at how this is the leadership of this club. And I'm very proud of what you've done in the past. So thank you very much. And all of the chairmen and chairwomen and vice chairs are what makes this club work. In this club, real action, the stuff that gets done happens in the committee. You know, we're too big to get to know each other in 1 hour once a week. But in the committees, that's where we make friends, and that's where we do the business of Rotary. It's very important for not just the work that you do, but how we go about introducing new members to your committees. For many new members, what goes on in the committee is going to be their best experience ever. And it's important that we introduce them welcomingly, that we greet them very well, and make sure that we know their names and recognize them when they're there. And that's why I am thanking all of the chairmen, both present and past, for the great job that you've done. That's what's made this club work. So, well done. Thank you. Kathy Michaelagic, please come to the microphone. I'm sure this time.
It's not on. Oh, there we go. Okay. On behalf of the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation, it is my pleasure today to present a grant check in the amount of $5,420 to Ann Grady. This grant is providing funding for new therapy equipment. Our Disability Services Committee members received the request, participated in the vetting process, and made the decision to recommend the grant approval to our club board and foundation trustees. It is due to the countless Toledo Rotarians who give unselfishly, which enables us to provide these grants. Thank you to everyone who continues to support our Toledo Rotary Club Foundation so we can continue to aid in supporting the needs of our community. I'd like to invite Dr. Roger Fortner, Executive Director of Ann Grady, to come to the podium to accept the grant and share a short description of how our foundation's gift of $5,420 has helped their organization.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, and I want to thank the Rotary Club of Toledo. You don't know how big of a difference you've made in the lives of the people we serve. And like Kathy said, we purchased therapy equipment, three major pieces. A piece of equipment that helps people rise from a wheelchair to standing position, a piece of equipment that helps individuals who use a wheelchair walk, and a hydraulic table that helps our physical therapists do range of motion and other exercises with people with disabilities. From the bottom of my heart and for all the people at Ann Grady, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good work. It's so important to be doing things in the community like this to help those that are in need, and we're so happy to help out where we can. Really appreciate it. Kathy, would you step to the microphone?
Thank you. It's a little discombobulating to be on the right side as opposed to the left, so all my papers are messed up, but we have a little bit of work to do because the clock is over here, so President Tim wanted to sit to the left. So anyway, and we're out of sync just a little bit, so if you'll bear with me. I want to thank everyone. A few times this month, I think it's just been this month, I've talked about our new directory that we're going to have printed. It goes to print next week. And if you weren't here, I want to make sure you're listening because I'm going to mention a few names. We had a photographer here the last 2 weeks, so you had your picture taken, updated, so that'll be in the directory. I want to thank those who are going to advertise in this directory. Top Hat, Toledo Community Foundation, 2Scale, V&A Risk, Hospice, Danbury Real Estate and Max Reddish, Toledo Opera, Impact, Inclusivity, Manpower, the Alzheimer's Association, Isabel Financial Services, Citizens Bank, Citizens National Bank, and your participation with this is enabling us to eliminate that expense from our expenses for the club and actually increase some of our revenue. So there are a few key folks that are missing that I would love to see advertise in this. And I mentioned it before, so this directory is used over and over and over. How many of you use your directory? Just like all the time, right? You look at it, and so it's got tabs, it's got all kinds of nifty information in it that we haven't had before, and I'm really looking forward to it. But a couple of people that I would really like to see perhaps consider advertising, and this is the last week, so that's why I'm making the announcement. Thread Marketing Group, I wasn't going to say that, but I looked at you, Joe. But Natural Way, Walt Churchill's Market, Design to Construct, should have an ad in here. Toledo Club, Mercy, Fifth Third, PNC Bank, the Andersons, Jaffe Jeweler, Toledo Metal Spinning. So if you want to place an ad in here, this is your last week. A full page is, what I say, 500, a half page is 150, and a business card is 75. My last plug, but I want to make sure if you want to advertise in this, you have an opportunity to do so. So please check with me or Katie after today's meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Kathy, I've often thought that you belong on the right side, on the right-hand side. Joe Sharp, would you come to the microphone and introduce Marlon Kiser?
It's my pleasure today to introduce one of our own, Marlon Kiser. He is the president and CEO of WGTE Public Media. He is celebrating his 20th year anniversary with the Public Broadcasting Foundation of Northwest Ohio and as a Rotary member of our club. From his time serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa to serving in state and county governments in various positions in the healthcare industry, he's had a very interesting work history. Marlon is a graduate of Bowling Green State University. His presentation today is on the history of WGTE Public Media. Please welcome Marlon.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. No matter what happens, I think I'm doing better than the district governor in terms of attendance. So, what we're going to do first is I want to recognize some people who are important to WGTE as well as important to the Rotary Club of Toledo. I've got a number of directors who are here today. Greg Guzman is with us. Greg is a director at WGTE and also one of our fellow Rotarians. We have also Chuck Schaub, who is a past director at WGTE, a past president, as well as currently serving on our Council of Advisors. We have two other directors who are Rotarians, Ben Brown, and I don't think Ben is here, and then also Jennifer Hildebrand. Ben is currently a secretary to the board and serves on the executive committee, and Jennifer is on the finance committee and has served as past chairman of that. Also like to give a special recognition to Dick Anderson. I don't think Dick is here. Dick, too, is a past director of WGTE and also a past chairperson of the board. That was back in the 1980s. And last but not least is Ray Miller, WGTE's Director of Content and Creative Services. He's responsible for everything you see on TV or hear on the radio and online. He's also an Emmy Award-winning producer. Sometime or other, I'd like to suggest to the club that we should just not have a regular presentation, but maybe just watch his Emmy Award-winning film, Chuck Ely, Undefeated, the Chuck Ely Story, which is one of the favorite productions that I think we've ever done. I am a member of the Toledo Area Cultural Leaders Organization. It has all the usual suspects of the arts and cultural organizations, such as the Toledo Museum of Art, the Zoo, Metro Park, the Arts Commission of Toledo, and the rest. Several years ago, we had a large meeting at which point all the member organizations were to give a presentation, a little bit about their history, their services to the community, and then also their collaborative relationships with others. The presentations occurred in alphabetical order, which meant, of course, I was the last one to go up. As it happened, I got up to the podium at the very end and was just ready to start when I think it was Brian Kennedy of the museum, not Raymond, who started to pick on me. And he started to tease me mercifully, and then the rest of my colleagues and people I thought were my friends joined in and started to pick on me. You see, the thing is, I was just ready to launch my PowerPoint presentation. I had 5 really powerful slides, and everybody was picking on me. The reason being is that everyone before me had a video, And here's the guy who's got a TV station and radio and all this audio video production stuff, and he comes up with this lame PowerPoint presentation. I might point out I did not read any of the slides because I hate seeing that as a member of the program committee. Part of the evaluations, one of the biggest complaints is, why do they read the PowerPoint slides? So today, there's no PowerPoint, nor is there a monologue from me. I have a video. Walter, roll tape.
WGTE Public Media is a center of learning and education. We were founded as a 501c3 nonprofit organization and as an educational institution. 60-plus years later, our educational mission still remains at the heart of what we do every day. Dedicated to enabling personal development and civic improvement by the innovative use of technology to educate, engage, entertain, empower, and explore, WGTE strives to be a trusted, dynamic, and essential resource for quality and innovation. WGTE was founded as the Greater Toledo Educational Television Foundation. And to think, it all began with French lessons offered remotely in the classrooms of Toledo Public Schools. In 1952, WGTE began offering broadcasts to classrooms. Since we did not have a transmitter tower to broadcast our signal, the Midwest program on airborne television instruction provided the perfect solution, a flying television station. MPATI was a not-for-profit consortium of several educational institutions and television producers established in 1959 at Purdue University. The MPATI transmitters were located inside a plane, which would fly roughly 4.5 miles in the air in a figure-8 pattern. One 24-foot antenna extended from the belly of the plane and beamed the signal across a 200-mile radius, covering Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. MPATI began regular service in 1961 with $16 million from the Ford Foundation. While technology innovations made educational broadcast possible, the transformations also happening in commercial television began to worry many Americans. On May 9, 1961, Newton Minow made his first major speech as chairman of the Federal Communications Commission at a National Association of Broadcasters meeting. Minow said,
"When television is good, nothing, not the theater, not the magazines or newspapers, nothing is better. But when television is bad, nothing is worse."
He urged each of the attendees at the event to watch their own station for a day.
"I can assure you that what you will observe is a vast wasteland. You will see a procession of game shows, formula comedies about totally unbelievable families, blood and thunder, mayhem, violence, sadism, murder, Western bad men, Western good men, private eyes, gangsters, more violence and cartoons. And endlessly commercials, many screaming, cajoling, and offending."
Minow's landmark speech is considered by many to be one of the most influential American speeches of all time. In fact, it became the catalyst for the formation of the public media system as we know it today. In 1965, the Carnegie Commission on Educational Television was established to study the role of educational, non-commercial television. Its report, Public Television, A Program for Action, released January 26, 1967, called for a corporation for public television to receive and distribute federal and other funds to support public TV stations, production, and interconnection. On November 7, 1967, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed a law setting up public broadcasting in the U.S. and establishing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. On January 5, 1969, CPB and the Ford Foundation each granted $250,000 to connect 150 public TV stations through a landline link. CPB's role in public media is to shield stations from political influence and deliver federal support in a way that does not affect a station's ability to operate independently. CPB also provides funding to producers of programming, but cannot distribute or broadcast it. The Public Broadcasting System, formed in 1969, is a private, nonprofit corporation whose members are America's public television stations. PBS, in partnership with its member stations, serves the American public with programming and services of the highest quality, using media to educate, inspire, entertain, and express a diversity of perspectives. Currently, there are 350 non-commercial educational member station licensees that serve all 50 states, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, and American Samoa. Approximately 90 public radio stations in 1970 created NPR Incorporated, an independent, nonprofit media organization. NPR was founded on a mission to work in partnership with member stations to create a more informed public, one challenged and invigorated by a deeper understanding and appreciation of events, ideas, and cultures. Each local public media station, whether TV or radio, maintains sole authority and responsibility for selecting, presenting, and scheduling the programs that it airs, along with programs that they produce themselves. Public media stations choose their programs from a variety of sources, such as the Public Broadcasting System, National Public Radio, and more. Currently, with support from CPB, the public media system of independently owned and operated stations consists of more than 1,041 local public radio stations and more than 365 local public television stations. Today, WGTE TV operates WGTE HD, WGTE PBS Kids 24/7, and WGTE Create. In addition to broadcast television, we offer video on demand through our website, mobile app, and via over-the-top devices such as Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, and others. Our television programming reaches nearly 200,000 households weekly in Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. We distribute programs provided by PBS and others, including Nova, Nature, Masterpiece, Great Performances, cooking and travel shows, and more. We produce and distribute local favorites, including our WGTE Presents series, Toledo Stories, our popular documentaries on subjects from the greater Toledo area, past and present, Business 360 with Christy Hoffman, our Town Hall series, and more. Over the years, WGTE has produced more than 5,000 programs for broadcast and streaming. We have won multiple Emmys for productions including Plugged In, Toledo Stories, Undefeated, The Chuck Ely Story, and the Thursday Night Dream Team, as well as countless nominations. Our popular series, Toledo Stories, was awarded a certificate from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Our children's programs run 24/7 on WGTE PBS Kids and at key times for family viewing on WGTE HD. In addition, we offer on-demand programming, educational games, and enrichment activities through the PBS Kids app and the PBS Kids website, all of which are designed to encourage children and their parents to learn while being entertained. On May 2nd, 1976, WGTE began radio operations. WGTE FM 91 has grown into 4 stations throughout Ohio: WGTE in Toledo, WGBE in Bryant, WGLE in Lima, and WGDE in Defiance. In addition to the traditional broadcast offered, WGTE offers podcasts and live streams via our website, our app, and smart speakers. Today, we reach approximately 75,000 listeners throughout Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. FM 91 delivers national news and entertainment programs. We are the only classical music station in the area. We produce programs such as the award-winning Toledo Symphony Lab, Rough Draft Diaries, new music from Bowling Green, classical conversations, jazz spectrum, electronic currents, and many others. Our popular classical music collaboration with the Toledo Symphony, the Toledo Symphony Lab, was recently awarded the Touchstone Award in the Broadcasting Excellence category from the Press Club of Toledo. The series Rough Draft Diaries has won 2 Touchstone Awards for Broadcasting Excellence and was selected as the best local podcast from the Toledo City paper. In 1991, WGTE helped to pioneer PBS Kids' first educational outreach project by working with Fred Rogers and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This programming was used to research the effectiveness of the Mr. Rogers Child Care Partnership, a precursor to the PBS Ready to Learn service we have today. This initiative combines quality television programming for children with follow-up activities to improve the reading and literacy skills of preschoolers, especially children from families with low incomes. The outreach program that began here in Toledo eventually grew to be used by over 350 public television stations in the United States. Today, the Ready to Learn program is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Under this federal grant, CPB and PBS Kids work with local stations like WGTE to develop, distribute, and evaluate PBS Kids' multi-platform content, including television programs, video, interactive games, mobile apps, and hands-on activities, all of which engage children, families, and educators in learning experiences at home, in preschool, and in out-of-school settings. WGTE's educational services have grown to include our early education program and our Educational Resource Center. Annually, more than 4,500 early childhood educators are trained because of WGTE's efforts, and more than 6,000 K-12 teachers receive professional development. Many of our educational initiatives are offered free of charge or are funded by grants and donations. We work with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and our staff serve as the statewide coordinator for Ohio Ready to Learn. We supervise the delivery of nearly 200 workshops throughout the state and coordinate efforts of all Ohio public television stations to serve early childhood professionals. In addition to the many efforts we make through school and teacher trainings, WGTE offers educational outreach opportunities in our community through fun educational events for families, preschoolers, and school-aged children. Annual events like our East Toledo Storybook Festival, Be My Neighbor Day, literacy events hosted at the Toledo-Lucas County Library, along with other partners, reach thousands of attendees. We use this opportunity to teach parents and children about literacy, being caring members of a community, and to pass out free books, summer reading activities, educational games, and more. We are also in collaboration with nearly 30 area arts and culture organizations annually. We believe collaboration is vital to our educational mission. Such collaborations include the Toledo Symphony, Key Bank, Metro Parks Toledo, Ohio Department of Education, PNC Grow Up Great, Toledo Lucas County Public Library, the Toledo Zoo, and so many more. As a nonprofit, WGTE has always been funded by member support.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Many remember fondly the days of the WGTE Buy-In, a zany live auction, which was the main annual fundraiser from 1968 to 1998. Fundraising certainly has changed, but member support continues to be our single largest source of funding to this day. Individual support generates more than 33% of our annual revenue, which is about $1,355,000 per year.
I'm standing in front of this wonderful pie chart that elicits both questions and answers for people as they look at it. But we want you to know the largest portion, truly over half of that portion, 42% of our entire budget is derived from the members. And members may also be translated into viewers. If you are a viewer or a listener and you are not a member, that's what happens. We lose you. 42% of the support is lost. So we're asking you now to call at 243-9255 and make up that important 42% that we've just lost.
Now, a community station is the most flexible, it's the most nimble, and independent kind of licensee. We're no one's mouthpiece. We're not beholden to any entity. We don't have any shadow obligation to do PR for our owning, controlling agency. At the same time, a community station has the hardest row to hoe financially.
WGTE received about 22% of total revenues from CPB for both television and radio programming. That translates to about $898,000 in federal funding annually from CPB. In turn, we use about 26% of our expenses to pay for the PBS and NPR programs we distribute. CPB's annual appropriation is $445 million, which is only 1/100% of the total federal budget. This represents an investment of $1.35 per citizen per year and has not increased for a number of years. More than 70% of CPB's funding is provided as grants to nearly 1,498 locally owned and operated nonprofit public radio and television stations, like WGTE. Less than 5% of funding is spent on CPB's operation. Unlike commercial stations, WGTE cannot accept commercial advertising per the Federal Communications Commission. This allows us to maintain our independent status while focusing on our educational mission in this community. From once transmitting our signal via airplane to the wireless broadband cell phones and tablets used today, technology has evolved rapidly over the past century. But even though the way we reach our audiences has changed, our mission of educating and entertaining our community has remained steadfast and will continue in the future. WGTE Public Media promises to continually evolve in both our quality and educational programming to remain a constant in our community for both the current and future generations of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan.
I hope you agree that's better than a PowerPoint presentation. I want to thank Ray and also Caitlin Finkler, the producer of that, for putting it together. It was really, the whole point was just to get Shirley Timonier in there with that pie chart dropping down. I think it was precious. What I'm going to do now is talk just a little bit about what you can expect from WGTE in the coming year, and also I'll take the lead and ask the most popular question that we're asked, and I'll give an answer to that, and then I'll also deal with the most common complaint that we receive, and because I know it's out there. First thing is, sometime this fall, WGTE, as well as other public television stations across the country, will start live streaming its primary television channel. For us, it'll be WGTE HD, as well as our PBS Kids channel. And so when we broadcast Masterpiece at 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening, you'll be able to stream that live at the same time. Obviously, more and more people are cutting cords. They're less engaged. Few people are engaged with over-the-air television broadcasts. Cable cords are being cut. People are streaming content increasingly. And so we finally, and I think long overdue, made the correct move that we'll start live streaming our content online. PBS has got a wonderful lineup of content available for us. September 15th, Ken Burns' newest documentary will start airing. It's a multi-part series on country music. It will be excellent, and it's a great story about what really amounts to a unique American art form. Toledo Stories, we've got a number of productions in the pipeline. In fact, this Thursday at 8:30 on WGTE TV, you can watch the premiere of A Soldier's Story, Never Forgotten. Like many communities during World War II, the city of Kenton in Hardin County, down in the southern part of Northwest Ohio, was devastated by a number of casualties during the war. One loss in particular had a terrible effect on the community. I think it had a population in the 1940s of about 7,600 people. In 1943, 9 soldiers from Kenton died during a 13-day battle to take control of a Japanese airstrip in the Solomon Islands. It was the Battle of Munda Point. Our story is looking at the lives of those young men, the community and the devastation that occurred, their family members, and also it's a discussion of sacrifice and what patriotism really means. And that's going to be this Thursday at 8:30. Next month on September 12th, we'll be broadcasting another new show. The Toledo Choral Society takes a look at the 100-year anniversary of the Toledo Choral Society, an outstanding local music group that's been entertaining us now, as I'd indicated, for 100 years. Also, January of 2020, we'll have Westside Montessori, a look at the Montessori school and its unique approach to education and its success in preparing children for high school and beyond. Following the successful premiere this past spring of Flight Path, a 1-hour documentary on the migratory world of birds, we're developing an entire follow-up series now that's going to look at not only birds, but also climate, habitat, the environment, and a whole variety of different aspects with a rich educational application that can be used in middle school and high schools. As pointed out in the video, we also have Business 360 with Christy Hoffman. That is going into its second season this year. But as I think about Toledo's story, and I mentioned this to President Tim, though I didn't specifically get his permission to do it, but since I'm at the podium, the mics are mine. You know, people constantly say, Marlon, have you thought about this show? Have you thought about doing a Toledo story about this show or that show? And so what I normally say is we've got a long list of productions that we'd like to do. And as I say, and it's not meant to harm anybody's thinking about it, you know, but ideas are a dime a dozen. The problem is putting the dimes together to tell the stories. The one story that, if you looked at it, should be and is at the top of our list, and that's a documentary about the Rotary Club of Toledo. One of the things that the documentary would do, and you can't miss this point, it would deal with the common complaint, the lament that I hear from most of you. Nobody knows what we do. Nobody knows the contributions that we're making to the community. Nobody knows how we started and what we're doing not only now, but what we're going to do into the future. And so I think we really do need to sit down and have a conversation about this. We've talked about it from time to time, even before the late Dick Rupert was president of the club. We've had conversations about this. I think we should do another. Ray and I will be available after the meeting if you'd like to sit down and start a conversation. This fall on FM 91, we'll enter our 7th season of New Music from Bowling Green that was referenced in the video. That's a production between WGTE Public Media and the College of Music at Bowling Green State University. This program is carried nationally. It's been on 160 stations as well as internationally in the country of Dubai. Most, you know, as people talk to me and they say, well, you know, this is a great job, and what do you like best about what you do? There's a tremendous amount of things that we do that I'm very, very proud of, not the least of which are all the people who make the great things happen. But for me, it's not the Toledo stories, not just the local production work that we do for television and for video. It's not all the radio content that we produce and provide the community, the support that we provide the arts and culture organization. For me, it's really the educational services that we provide. As pointed out in the video, we provide K-12 professional development training to teachers. We train anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 teachers per year, how to use technology in the classroom. What it comes down to is making them better teachers, making them more effective. But the thing that I like the most, and that I think is the best thing that we do, is our work in early childhood education. As the video pointed out, my predecessor, Shirley Timoner, who had that malfunctioning pie chart, she came up with the idea for what became Ohio Ready to Learn, and then Ready to Learn as it was implemented nationwide by all the public television stations. I'm pleased to say that I had a small part to play in the creation of Ready to Learn for the state of Ohio. Shirley had the idea, her two daughters, and Shirley is a past Rotarian. Shirley had two daughters who were in daycare, and she thought they were wasting their time. If you knew Shirley at all, she was sort of task-oriented. And so she thought, what if we could use the time, instead of for play and daycare, that we could use it to really teach children reading and literacy skills so they could start school ready to learn. And so she had the idea of using PBS Kids content. Think of Sesame Street, of course. Think of how many of the younger people in here learn their ABCs with the help of Sesame Street. How many of you as parents, your children were helped in that by Sesame Street and all the other rich programming that we have. So she had the idea that we could take PBS Kids content and effectively use it in daycare centers by training daycare providers. And this was primarily focused on, and continues to this day, to be focused on low-income daycare providers. These are they work with the most disadvantaged kids, the kids who come from low income. They're children of color. They just don't have the advantages that others do who are truly middle-class kids. So she came up with the idea. She presented it to Fred Rogers at a conference back in 1991. Fred thought it was a brilliant idea, and as a result, she launched it with Fred, and it became administered by all the stations in the country. Where I came into it was Governor George Voinovich had just been elected, and at one point I was at a meeting I worked for then. It was the Department of Human Services, now Job and Family Services, and I was a regional director for it. And he was talking about how he wanted to do something in education. He wanted to really make a positive impact in the lives of kids. And as I listened to him, I thought he spoke, the way he spoke, I think he was clearly frustrated after all those years of being mayor of Cleveland. He always wanted to take over the Cleveland city school system. And so we had heard about this project. Shirley was making a pitch for money to the Department of Human Services, as well as the Bureau of Child and Family Services and Department of Youth Services and others, to fund a pilot project here in Ohio. And so the governor thought it was a good idea, thought it would be a good investment, so I was part of a small team of people that worked with Shirley and got seed money for WGTE and also WBGU TV in Bowling Green. It grew into Ohio Ready to Learn. WGTE administers the project for all 8 public television stations in Ohio. We have been supported by every governor. Regardless of administration, everybody has continued the investment, regardless of political persuasion. And it's one of the best things that we do, because I think it's one of the very best investments that we can make to try to change school system and change the lives of young people. And that's in preparing those children truly so they can start school ready to learn. I promised that I would ask the most popular question and answer it, and that I'd also address the most common complaint. So, the most common question is, why do you air those annoying fund drives? You know, you interrupt regular programming, you do it on the radio, it seems like you're doing it all the time. We don't do it all the time, we do it a few times. You can get an answer to that question by asking a different question. What's the difference between public broadcasting in the United States and the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation in the UK? The difference is $3 billion. As pointed out in the video, federal appropriations for public broadcasting, TV and radio in this country, is under $450 million. It works out to $1.35 per citizen per year. The UK gives public funding to the BBC of $3.5 billion. $3.5 billion. We get a little less than $450 million. On top of that, the BBC also has a for-profit arm that generates $1.5 billion. We are substantially underfunded relative to what the BBC receives. In fact, if you take all the revenue that we generate with our membership support, with what we generate from underwriting, grants, and everything else, it only comes up to about $3 billion when the BBC has access for $5.5 billion. And that is why we need to go out and we need to fundraise. When the Public Broadcasting Law in 1967 was enacted, Congress had a long debate about how do we fund this, should we fund it, to what extent we should fund it. They decided that they would give enough money to get the system up and running and give it as a base support grant. But that in the end, if the American public wants public media, they'll pay for it directly. We'll also have philanthropic support from businesses. We'll also receive grants and develop collaborative relationships that we can leverage for funding. That's the way it's always been. There are some, and it seems like for the last 15 years or so, there have been proposals in Congress to eliminate the funding for public media. The current administration, true to form, has called for the elimination of funding. We have bipartisan support, not only in the House, but also the Senate, to continue funding public media because they believe that it is important. And it is important. You know, we receive about $900,000 a year in support for television and radio. And as I said, the total appropriation for everybody, 1,500 stations across the country, is a little less than $450 million. If that approximately $900,000 disappeared from us, what would happen? You'd lose public broadcasting in Toledo and Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. In fact, the entire system would collapse with the loss of that money. And you think that maybe that's a little hyperbole, maybe that's an overstatement. Think about it. Where would you go and raise $900,000 locally to make up that difference? If that money was out there, we'd already be raising it, and I'd be expanding and enhancing services. The money's not there to the extent that we would need. And I run as lean an operation in terms of what you can as far as public TV and radio can be. And so that money is absolutely critically important, and that's why it's there's bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate to continue funding for us. And so that's why we do the on-air fundraisers. We talk directly to people. People are using the service, reminding them of the importance of this service, and that we also need your financial support. Biggest complaint, okay, your liberal bias. That's the biggest complaint. My good friend Yuval and I have talked about this for almost 20 years. I think some time ago, Yuval and I tacitly agreed to disagree and just let it go at that. But that's the biggest complaint we receive. Public media is biased, has got a liberal bias. And if you define liberal as being way out left is MSNBC, and way out right is Breitbart and Fox News, the fact of the matter is the people who are dispassionate about this and unbiased researchers, the Pew Foundation, finds public broadcasting to be about in the middle, NPR a little left to center. But nowhere are we out there espousing a point of view such as MSNBC, possibly CNN and others. The reason I think we get this criticism is two things. Number one, the stories that NPR covers, and then there's how do we talk about those stories. And the way the reporting is handled, and I'll argue this with anyone, I think the reporting is actually honest, it's fair, it's balanced, and it presents all sides of an argument. You know, I think every time I get complaints from people and say, well, you're too liberal, you know, and I point out things, I say, give me an example. And most of the time they can't. But the fact of the matter is, you know, I'm always reminded of Simon and Garfunkel's words, you know, a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. We are predisposed to certain things. But if you listen to the reporting is good reporting. It's solid reporting. The issue is public radio in particular, and this is where the complaint comes in. Most legislators don't have issues with public television. They like kids programming. They don't have issues with the nightly business report and the news hour. The issues are with NPR and its reporting. A lot of the stories have to do with things that you could stereotype as sort of liberal progressive issues. They talk about LGBTQ issues. They talk about people in transition. They talk about people in poverty, people who haven't got access to health care or the cost of health care, a whole variety of things like that that are socioeconomic issues. And when you hear that, a lot of people think that they're trying to advance an agenda, but if you really listen to the reporting, that argument isn't supported at all. Occasionally, and I swear to God it's true, there are some people who complain that we are too conservative. And I can only imagine how far liberal they are out at the other side. So that is the most popular question, the most popular complaint. If you've got any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left. I'll answer. Thank you.
Marlon, that was a great presentation. I learned a lot. I wonder if you would say a few words about pre-K and what kind of results that you're getting for the money, for the investments you're making. Do you have any measurement techniques?
Several years ago, WGTE was part of a nationwide pilot called Raising Readers. We were one of the first 5 stations in the country to pilot this. It's been expanded now to other public television stations across the country. What we did over 5 years is we received a pretty good slug of money from the Federal Department of Education and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, targeted the schools in the lowest performing zip codes, the poorest zip codes in Toledo. We threw in a tremendous amount of assets. It was all backed up by research. We had researchers nationally out of UT and also out of the University of Michigan. This was all to find different techniques. What were the effective ways to really move the needle, to really say that, yes, these children are learning their vowel sounds. Yes, these children are growing in terms of metrics on social emotional learning and a variety of other things. Out of all the stations in that first cohort group, and there were 5 of us, followed by 10 after that, we were the only station that moved the needle for 2 of the schools for kids when they take their kindergarten readiness aptitude learning test. It's a standardized test that all kids are given when they're going into school to assess where they're at. We were the only one that moved the needle and showed improvement in terms of the skills. Nothing else changed. There was nothing else that was going on that made that change, except for all the assets and resources that we put in to do that. There are a lot of organizations in this community that are working in the space of early childhood education. The club has chosen it as one of its transformational projects. As I said earlier, I don't think we can make a better investment in children than what we can do in terms of providing early childhood education, reading and literacy services, as well as things that can help them develop socially and emotionally. I'm convinced, and I've say what you will and think about the Toledo Public School system, but if you have children who can perform at a more acceptable, uniform level when they enter school, TPS doesn't have to invest as much in remedial services. They can invest in taking what they get and making it better. And not to denigrate teachers and some of them, but I think you can take a mediocre teacher and make him or her a better teacher if they have better students. And so it's important that those kids start the best possible way and that the services they receive are additive, not remedial services. And so I'm particularly pleased that the club has chosen early literacy. I think it's an excellent way for us to go, and I look forward to trying to bring what WGTE has in its assets and knowledge to make it a success.
Thank you very much. Marlon, in recognition of the wonderful presentation you made today, we're going to make a contribution to the Polio Plus Fund in your name, and I would also like to give you this book, Historic Tales of Toledo. Thank you and well done. Next week, our program is going to have David Welch as our principal speaker, and he's going to talk about the lasting effects of lead poisoning. We have two meetings today. Vocational Services Committee is meeting in the North Cape Room, and Community Services is in the Vistula Room right across the hallway there. I saw Chuck.
Marlon, before we go on to our next segment, is there a number people should call if they want to? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
866-380-46.
There you go. When my wife was in labor in the delivery room, I learned that there was a special machine in the hall that was specifically made to warm blankets. As I laid the blanket down on our new baby girl, I thought to myself, do you think they keep these at womb temperature? Marlon, do you want to give that number again? My friends tell me I'm too condescending. That means I talk down to people. Why did the melons get married? Because they cantaloupe. What is the difference between a well-dressed man on a bicycle and a well-dressed man on a unicycle? A tire. Ooh, that's good. That's good. With this hot weather, I decided to buy a ceiling fan. Complete waste of money. All he does is stand there applauding and saying, ooh, I love how smooth it is. You'll get that one on your way home. What is a walk? A walk is something you throw at wabbits. What do you call someone else's cheese? Nacho cheese. What's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but their flag is a big plus. If you die before someone else does that mean you've beaten them to death? And what is the difference between ignorance and apathy? I don't know, and I don't care.
Thank you, Chuck, and we are adjourned.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you, so let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor?